The magic worked.
Good morning. The engineer had to mess with the had to mess with the controls here for a minute, but we're here. And this show is called "This Is Now a Bridge to a Better World." And here's our graphic and intro, which you're familiar with. I'm Theresa Mitchell, and that's Lonnie
That
Haynes.
cracks me up.
And today we want to talk about the climate
Push
specifically.
this back
Okay, let's push this
because we need to get both of us in the happy frame. There we go.
back. All right.
And we're going to do that because that's putting pressure on this other thing
Right.
over here. And
It's all very,
okay,
very professional.
very thought out.
Yes. Specifically geoengineering. And of course, a lot of things are happening in the world. And we're very aware that, for example, that the Israelis are now attacking the West Bank. And, you have to wonder if they're going to try to Gaza-fy it. Why would they not?
I was going to say, I don't think I'm wondering about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep,
that just
yep.
seems like it's happening.
It's terrifying. And, there's a war is going on in Ukraine and Russia. And we have a presidential election in the United States in which a person who has clearly violated the 14th Amendment and shouldn't be running is being encouraged to run and being given puff pieces by major media. So there are crises. But on top of this, maybe you noticed today when the sun came up, it came up orange here in Portland. And so we all said to ourselves, oh, we know what that is. We've been here before. It is going to be a hot day. It was 101 yesterday, according to the news media, local news media. And it'll be something like that today. And then I understand it'll cool down. But that is hot enough. It's too hot for me. I don't go out in that kind of temperature. And let me read a little bit of the Washington Post article on it, and really very little because, we've all heard this stuff. It's by Sarah Kaplan. She writes, as floodwaters coursed through Texas and Taiwan, as mosquito-borne viruses spread across the Americas, as lethal heat struck down children on hikes and grandparents on pilgrimage, the world's average temperature this summer soared to the highest level in recorded history, according to new data from Europe's top climate agency. It's called Copernicus. And 1,300 people died in Mecca. These are people who knew they were going to Saudi Arabia. They knew it was going to be hot. 1,300 people died this year in June, actually, during the Hajj. Here in Portland, the school district did their usual weird dance where they let the kids go to school until they were all sick with the heat yesterday. And then they said, oh, we're learning. We'll close the schools early today. It's like, did they not notice the last umpteen zillion times they did this, that 2/3 of the schools in Portland don't have air conditioning? And of course, these are the schools on the poorer side of town. So schools will be closing at an earlier hour today so that the kids don't get sick from the heat and global temperatures.
Well, and that assumes, I'm just going to put it out there, that assumes that the kids then have a cooler place to go after they leave the school building.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And for a lot of folks in Portland, that's not true. Unless you want to take up, some time renting air conditioning, like going to movies. This is, what we do in Mexico when, it's like, oh my God, it is really, really a hot and humid day. Let's go rent some air conditioning, which means let's see a movie or let's go hang out at the mall and sit on the bench inside the mall.
Yeah, go to Lloyd's Center, kids. It's
and
not good for
maybe
anything
not
else.
actually do much more than sit on the bench inside the mall. What is this? And I just got to say, when kids get sent home from school in September because of heat in Portland, that's kind of weird, right? It's kind of weird. I'm just, I was born here. I was born in Portland in the summer in 1966. And I went to Portland Public Schools. I did get sent home once because we ran out of heating oil and the school was too cold to operate. That was in January. But I don't know. I don't remember it ever being particularly hot because the schools didn't meet in July and August, the hot months, right? The fact that we are in September and experiencing triple-digit heat is mind-blowing to those of us who have, say, spent our lives in Portland.
I came here in fall, winter of 1990, and there were ice flows during that freeze in the Willamette. And I saw that and I thought, oh, how excellent. I've moved to a really cool place where they have ice flows in the river. River hasn't frozen over since I've been here. I understand historically it has. Well, fat chance. So there are reasons for this. Let me again read from an article from the press. From The Guardian, August 15th, a U.S. foundation associated with the oil company Shell has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to religious right and conservative organizations, many of which deny that climate change is a crisis, tax records reveal. 14 of those groups are on the advisory board of Project 2025, a conservative blueprint opposing radical changes to the federal government, proposing radical changes to the federal government, including severely limiting the Environmental Protection Agency. Shell USA Company Foundation sent $544,000 to organizations that broadly share an agenda of building conservative power. That's what, just over the last few years they've sent that money. And it doesn't take much. I mean, they're sending it to, the Southern Baptist. So let me skip ahead to this week. In her NBC interview response, Kamala Harris explained, as Vice President, I did not ban fracking. As President, I will not ban fracking. Now, she has talked environment before, so it's interesting to see her, get her back up and say, ban fracking? Me? She's further noted, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as Vice President, adding that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking. Now, this is the most bullshit thing that she said during your interview, and it reflects the fact that the oil companies have that much power that the person who's supposed to be on the left really can't afford to ban fracking because she'd lose Pennsylvania, and she ain't getting the office of the President of the United States if she loses Pennsylvania. So sitting here in Oregon, we know this, and we can criticize her for being a politician talking out of both sides of her mouth, but it's a corrupt system, and this is something that we all. I don't want to say we built it because this is 2 generations after Reagan, and we are very much the victims of it. But it kind of brings up the fact that we don't have very much of a participatory democracy, do we? And the reason I brought up the local effects and the fact that and can feel that there's a disaster afoot is that, I've been saying for a few years that we pooped the tuba. I totally agree with all efforts to stop and to reduce fossil fuel emissions. But I say it's time for a geoengineering in a big way. And yesterday, 5 years ago, but we can't have it 5 years ago. And so I think I want to talk just for a moment about what I'm talking about and what kind of progress has been made on it and what kind of things have failed on it. There's an article. I want to start with the fail. There's that. Were you about to say something?
No, I like. I'm going to start with the fail. It just kind of struck
I went through this article and I eliminated their name because you don't want to give money to these people. A tiny startup. This is from IEEE Spectrum. It's an article by Mark Harris. Part of it says a tiny startup headquartered in South Dakota is using balloons to release small quantities of sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere in hope of reflecting some of the sun's energy away from the earth. Each gram of sulfur dioxide, says Andrew Song, is it sulfur dioxide? SO2 anyway. One of the founders, offsets the warming from 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide released from the burning fossil fuels. Not everyone is convinced by their methods, however, and many researchers and environmentalists worry the startup's unregulated operations are disrupting more responsible research into geoengineering, including a prominent effort at Harvard. And that's a pretty dramatic thing to say, but actually that much of it is true. Every gram blocks a ton. But I have more to say about it because I really don't think that sulfur dioxide should be put into the atmosphere. And you can't just start doing that. Because supposing
sulfur dioxide, isn't that part of what causes caustic?
Acidifies the oceans?
Yeah, yes. That's what I'm. Acid rain, right?
Yes.
Slightly different, but along those lines. Okay.
You hear the Austin Lounge Lizards song whenever you say that.
Yes.
That's how old I am, but sulfur dioxide is a pollutant. And it is a pollutant that was produced naturally. And the argument is, well, Mount Pinatubo spewed it into the air and reduced global temperatures by 0.2 of a degree, and we didn't all die. But that's a pretty broad statement, and who knows what it did. Probably it can be measured what it did to, for example, clams trying to form their shells in any place where the ocean was thereby acidified. It was not without its concomitant global disaster. So the idea of just putting sulfur dioxide into the air
Concomitant.
is,
Nice.
oh yeah, that's one of
Yeah.
those.
Carry right on. I was like, wow, that's how you say that. All right.
Dollar word, my grandma would say. Anyway, so they're financing their operations by selling $10 cooling credits for launching each gram of sulfur dioxide. Customers include individuals and corporate customers.
And we have comments saying, then the particulate experience, bizarre dissipation rates, landing in plants, disturbing photosynthesis. Photoplankton in the ocean creates 90% of the oxygen we breathe. Photosynthesis matters. Absolutely.
Okay, so this is just a bunch of yahoos trying to make money. There were some people who actually thought about it and started to do very, very tiny experiments about it. And what they were dropping into the atmosphere from the University of California, Santa Cruz, was calcium carbonate, which is sort of like dropping Tums. I mean, if it is anti-acid, literally. And they put up balloons or they proposed to, I don't know if they actually got around to putting up their balloons, which were similarly small, a few grams, and they wanted to measure, what it did and how it reacted and collect some of the stuff and et cetera, and do it completely scientifically. But they got blown out of the water by people who were just extremely upset that anyone was even thinking about it. And they're after going through this experience and being shut down as if they were a bunch of criminals, one of them said, having a bunch of independent actors willy-nilly putting parcels of pollution into the air is almost certainly not the way to do this. But it was countered by people who are saying, I've lost the quote anyway, essentially saying, if we want to find out what the truth is about this, we probably shouldn't announce that we're dropping. I mean, we're not hurting anybody anyway. So I would suspect from what they said that they're going on with their experiments. But there are several ways to geoengineer, and there have been several things tried. There was somebody who threw a lot of iron into the ocean and caused essentially an algae bloom. And
that doesn't seem like a great idea.
Doesn't seem like a great idea. And of course, wherever it is done, it causes local knock-on effects. But it did counter some global warming in the way that it does. There are people who say just plant trees. Plant trees is a great idea. We should plant trees. I agree. But I disagree that it will stop global warming.
We need more.
And if it's not stopped really quickly, I think all those trees that you plant will be burned up or just die from the heat. And here's why I think this.
Well, I was going to say, we need to be reforesting. We need to be replanting. We need to be regenerating wild places. We need to be recreating that web that we have harmed. That is something that must go on as well, because the soil needs it, our air needs it, all of us need that. And we need something else to actually mitigate the temperatures and the chaos in the climate systems as well. And that's where you're.
Yeah, and I just like trees and fields of hemp besides, and we certainly need them in the cities. The reason I say this, I have no right to claim a scientific analysis. I simply do not have the credentials, not anything close to it. So I'll frame it that way. But why would I say anything at all then? Well, because Ani and I paid attention to this for decades. And we watched what the scientists were saying, the way that they said it. We've seen scientists admit over the years that they were too cautious in what they said to the public. And we've seen the graph of what is expected get sharper and sharper and sharper. And I think that I can confidently predict from that simply that it will continue to some degree. In other words, as I said I guess it's been a couple of decades now, there's an acceleration in the acceleration. And there are not only sources that we keep finding that we didn't know about that are huge, that are accelerating what we're seeing this year, but there are combinations of effects that haven't been thoroughly analyzed. That's only just begun, the analysis of combinations of effects. And although the knock-on effects, the vicious cycle is beginning to be understood, the full strength of the vicious cycle, well, we'll need years of analysis. But I can give you some analysis right now. It may not be scientific, but I think I can back it up with what I have seen, and what Ani has seen is that we're only just beginning to understand how fucked we are. And I take that word from a scientist, Jason Box. And that's why I say we need effective geoengineering. And I'm really glad to say, I hate to say that. I mean, it's like admitting.
What do you hate to say? Say it.
Okay.
Out with it.
Right. I hate to say that we need engineering on this basis. It's like saying, oh, I give up. And it will be used as an excuse, and it's anticipated as an excuse by the oil companies to say, oh, never mind stopping us making giant subsidized profits, and sucking your blood and destroying the planet, because we can just have geoengineering. And they're excited about it. And they want to be the ones doing it too, which I just
I think that should not be allowed, right? No. I mean, those that are actually causing the destruction should not be paid money to also fix the destruction while they are continuously causing it. That's a no.
Yeah.
That's a right out no.
I see that my bullets have caused you to bleed, but I do have a glass of water for you. There's no.
Bad corporation down.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So they need to be in jail, but where was I going with this?
I'm not entirely sure. What kind of geoengineering were you saying was tried and true and we needed to get there, and you hate to say it?
I hate to say that we need to do something that has an immediate effect, because
we do.
We've gone that far, and it won't start until we're absolutely desperate. And it is in many ways too late. It's already too late in many ways. And there is going to be opposition for example, Russian oil firms who really want that ice in the Arctic to keep melting so they can get at that oil and sell that. And they really, really, really don't care about, environmentalists in the United States here talking about it, and they will push against it. But the good news is there is already a UN commission about this. The United Nations Environment Program released an expert review on solar radiation management last year. Excuse me. It's called One Atmosphere. And the European Union has just started a multi-million-dollar Euro research project. So things are happening internationally, and that's the only way that it can happen. So now I want to get down real quickly in a way of finishing up at some of the ways that have been proposed to do this.
And before you do that, can I remind people you're watching This Is Now, Bridge to a Better World.
I'm Theresa Mitchell.
And I'm Ani. And this is sort of the idea of the show. We know where we're at. And where we're at, it's fraught. It's fraught with problems, most especially of the global climate catastrophe variety, as well as all of the isms and systems of oppression. So we want to get from where we're at by acknowledging it, and then building, in fact, a firm plan with all y'all.
Yes,
that's the idea.
And before I
show.
Yeah, and I
so
don't
thanks.
Yes, sorry. And before I.
Furthermore, I say no.
I don't want to just leave my analysis as if it's my analysis. I'm agreeing with James Hansen, the former head of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Head of NASA says we need to jump on geoengineering now. And I said what the push for it is. A lot of the pushback is understandably emotional people saying, oh no, it can't be. It can't be that the planet is in that much danger, that the planet is on such fire that we must risk. We have no idea really what the knock-on effects of this are going to be. But I'll start by saying, of course it can't be sulfur dioxide what are they thinking? I mean, the people who
Yeah, for
done some
fuck's
research
sake.
on that anyway. So it needs to be calcium carbonate. So another article from IEEE looks at 6 geoengineering schemes going in reverse order. The most far-fetched idea has arguably come closest to being implemented, they write, akin to space elevator schemes. This involves a 20-kilometer pipe running from the ground and suspended by helium balloons, which they blast powder into the air with. So we can dismiss that. It would cost 4 to 10 billion per year. Airships, blimps, are attractive because of large payload capacity and long endurance potential. That could be 2 billion a year range. These are gigantic sums. They're also easily within the capacity of just the United States, even without seizing the oil companies and all their assets, as we of course should do. And a version of the airships would just be balloons. Or rockets, or more accurately, rocket-powered gliders could spread powder through the atmosphere and block the sunlight enough to cool off and maybe prevent, say, the Thwaites Glacier from crashing into the ocean as it is about to do. But that would be 390 billion per year. It might be one of the coolest ones, though. Guns. A Mark 7 naval gun has been 16-inch Mark 7 naval gun has been altered to blast aerosols into the air. 19 billion a year. Also kind of cool looking, but come on. And the top method would be new airplanes that are able to go up the 120,000 feet that we need. And the next best to that would be old airplanes that are altered to do that. That's been done before, actually, as long ago as the 1960s. I think they attached a rocket to the back of a Starfighter F-104, I think, and sent the thing into the stratosphere. So it can be done. And I say it needs to be done now. And the first we need to have the international discussions and get the Chinese and the Russians to agree that really we're going to die if we don't do this. And then we need to get started on it. And while that's all happening, we need to have a massive blue wave destroy the Republican Party once and for all so that we can then push the Democratic Party to the left. That's hopeful, I know. That's very hopeful. But that's the path forward that I see.
I am in agreement with you. I do believe that reforesting, I do believe that planting trees, I do believe that creating wildlife, larger wildlife corridors, and a regreening and rewilding of places that have been environmentally devastated is absolutely needed. And that we need to, in fact, do something at the same time to mitigate the harm done. One is a path forward that it will be sustainable. One is immediate triage to staunch the bleeding, as it were. And we need the both and. And so I thank you for bringing that up this morning.
So
I also just getting back to the point on the Harris Walz ticket not being able to, and who knows what political will is there with Harris in environmentalism, in going forward with the Green New Deal and things like that. I'm not sure, but we do need to push hard that direction.
I think they're
because
wrong.
it is the only chance we have. If the Democrats do not take the White House, and I hate sort of laying this out like a sports analogy, but if the Democrats don't take the White House, then what do we have?
Revolution.
Well, what I was going to say is we don't really have a path for legitimate lobbying and pressure from the populace to create change in policies around the Middle East or in policies around environmentalism. So for folks that say, I can't possibly vote for Harris and Walz, now she's for fracking and the genocide's continuing, so they don't have my vote either. is kind of an ostrich position at this point. I hate to talk about pragmatism and, in things like voting, because again, I've said before, I've always really supported a third party because I don't believe that a two-party system really helps us. But at this moment, pragmatically, we have to get the Harris Walsh ticket into the White House so that we can continue to move forward and pressure and lobby and organize as we have always done. And that is just straight up the way it is. So if she has to uh, prevaricate to become electable, or if she has to make these giant concessions to become, quote, electable, then so be it. But we still have to continue the pressure from the bottom, from the left. And that's our job, right? Her job is to get in. Our job is to then pressure her into doing the right thing.
I agree. And I disagree with the Democrats whenever they take an attitude. I understand they're being sneaky about Pennsylvania, but I still want to say you can't out Republican the Republicans, and you shouldn't try, because they're not coming over to your side. And when you try to out Republican the Republicans, all you do is weaken your support on the left. And you need strong, strong, strong support from the left, their Democratic Party, as much as the corporate Democrats like Nancy Pelosi hate to hear that sort of thing. You need our votes. And yes, we are out there. And you need to go way left if you want to stay in power. So that's my advice to the Democratic Party. Forget that, being more GOP than the GOP. Don't even try to be MAGA, of course, because you can't do that. I mean, that's
well, I don't. They're not going there, but they certainly have. There certainly are sections of the Democrat Party that are a little on the GOP light side.
Yeah, like the build a wall bullshit. I mean, come on, that's just so inhuman. They should take the opposite attitude and say we need to embrace immigrants. They're actually helping us, not harming us, and repeat the fact that immigrants simply do not bring crime. Quite the opposite. They calm down crime. So let's stop denigrating them, which is just racist, and let's call it racist. Bring them in and have a better society.
Yeah, we really do have to look at our future in terms of human rights, in terms of actual sensible immigration policy. And right now, what I'm afraid what we're doing is the mega crowd has, dare I say, trumped up concerns around immigration to the point that it has become a number one concern for folks that don't live in any kind of border state, that really have nothing to consider here, except for the fact that they have been cowed by the nonstop propaganda that has fallen from a Colt 45's mouth. And so, unfortunately, instead of just head on addressing it and saying, this has been a bunch of manufactured hoo-ha, malarkey, that we cannot just blindly go along with anymore. We got to call it out for the lies it is. Unfortunately, again, politically, we've gone past that state. That poisonous, racist, anti-immigrant knee-jerk response has now sunk deeply into the American psyche, and we have to re-educate, right? We have to really come up with campaigns of compassion and solidarity and anti-racist campaigns. And again, we do that moving forward. We cannot, we're going to have to do something if Trump gets back in, but our work becomes so much harder.
He's not getting there. We will win.
Pushing for the Harris Walsh ticket, yes. And there it is. And then to continue pushing, and then some more pushing.
Oh, yeah.
After that fact.
Yeah, there is a door open for us, and there are some good things that could happen. And on the other side, they are very determined. They understand this is their last gasp. If they can get in, if they can crush democracy, they can completely change the society. That's why they have the Project 2025, and actually I'm preaching to the choir here, so
Yeah.
I'll stop. What do the cards say today?
Oh, transition. Well, what the cards say. We have the Ten of Swords inversed. Why do I always do this? Why do I not know where the front is when I'm looking in a mirror?
Because everything's reversed.
We have the Page of Swords.
That's the page there.
That's the Page of Swords here. And we have the Five of Wands inverse. So 10 of Wands, 5 of Wands inverse, Page of Swords in the center. Let's go. The 10 of Wands talks about exhaustion. It talks about victory, but victory in terms of, so there's been a hard slog, right? And the slog is of willpower. It is a battle of ideas, a battle of will. And so in this hard slog, finally there is opening to admit that, wow, we've advanced. We've gained ground, if we wanted to use tired military analogies. But we have pushed ahead and we've gotten somewhere. But mother of Christ, we're tired, right? We're tired. So this is sort of an exhausted stance.
Is it sort of warning, like, not to be like those people who are like almost making it to the shelter while exploring the pole and died
Feet away.
30 feet away? Yeah.
Well, it just is to take care, right? To take care, to notice your exhaustion level, to take time to refresh and rejuvenate so you don't burn out and make yourself sick. All right, so we got that. We have the sword, the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords talks about being very, very curious, right? Very intellectual curiosity. It's very stimulating. Right now is a very, very stimulating time. And it is a time where one is sort of, what do I want to say? We're on high alert. Jumping at shadows is the word I keep getting. It is this is a time that we can like hear a little bit of a rumor and we're gonna run with that, right? It's but we need to remember to stay intellectually curious, to sort of follow the thread, follow the story, to not jump at shadows, and in fact to reserve some of that energy, right? Because we're already exhausted over here. So it is a good time to reserve the energy. Go ahead and be intellectually curious. Follow the thread. Do not jump at shadows. Reserve your energy because there is actual work to be done. We have to explore. The curiosity is good, but it's time to take in the information and not sort of amplify every loose rumor and squander energy willy-nilly fighting 100 foes around us instead of just sort of eyes on the prize, one step at a time, moving forward collectively. And so this is the card that talks about collective action. The Five of Wands is sort of, it's about a lot of confused energy that's going every direction. There's no clear idea that is prevailing. It's a bunch of, if you're familiar with traditional tarot imagery, this looks like a card with 5 people with big clubs just sort of whacking each other. There's absolutely no one in charge. There's no one coming out ahead. It's just confused action. And so in its inverse state, it calls for us to be clear on our intention and to cooperate to break through. And so in line with all of the other cards, we are really coming out ahead, but at great cost. We are exhausted and we have to pay attention to our bodies. We have to rest. We have to play. And we have to continue to move ahead. We are curious, and it's great to engage our curiosity, to stay engaged, to analyze and to practice our analysis, but we cannot take action at every injustice we see. It's like playing whack-a-mole. It's going to, in fact, continue and worsen our exhaustion, right? So no whack-a-mole, being curious, being ready, and cooperating with others, to not squabble around limited resources and time, but in fact to organize, to cooperate, and to move forward. So that's what I have for tarot
You know, that
today.
just ties in pretty neatly with my own feelings, or I could, gussy up that and say my analysis, and because I feel like we're just going to be we need to get ready for a sprint, because we're going to be in a hell of a fight. It's not just the election. I think that we're going to be fighting in courts. There's going to be bullshit pulled by the GOP that you won't believe that they're still hiding effectively. I mean,
So
we're
we have
ready to be
to
astonished and shocked.
create a very strong, cooperative, united force, a
Yes.
movement to counter that bullshit that we know is going to be heading our way. So conserve your energy for bigger fights, and don't fight alone. Always grab a comrade and create solidarity like our lives depend on it, because they do. And I just want to say, man, when I read Madeline Kahn, I'm tired. Like, you get me.
I mean, like in Blazing Saddles. So
Yes.
tired.
Yeah. And the enemy to progress is distraction. Squirrel. Yes, exactly that. Thank you all for joining us this
Yay!
week.
Now I get to read the comments.
And please do hit that like button. Like like this video, hit the notification bell. Theresa made good on her promise to break in with urgent news update in the middle of the week last week. And so you never know when that's going to happen. Have a fantastic week. We will be back next week, and we hope you are too. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button, hit the notification
Yeah, help
tone.
us out with that. Our love goes out to you and to all the ships at sea. How do you
Cheers.
step it?
You hit this button here.
That button.
That button. Yeah.
Bye. Click. And bye.